Hi, this is Patricia with Buzz and Bark Animal Reiki, and I'm going to do a short video because it's too loud in this office space. I'm going to do a video on Adoption Day for, dogs, cats, any of the animals, whether they're coming out of a sanctuary, whether they're coming out of any number of places on that day when they're going to be taken to their permanent home is a very happy day of celebration. But after that celebration, sometimes there's that, a lot of the times with the adoption, there's a 2-week trial period, and sometimes maybe it's a little bit longer than that. And during that trial period, an animal is adjusting to being in a new household, and they may or may not pass the test. So I really feel like people need to give it more than 2 weeks, even though there is a 2-week trial period, just because animals are coming out of a shelter situation. They're used to peeing in their cage or their kennel. They're not taken out as often for walks. They have a lot of time where they're solitary. They may still be dealing with trauma from their past situation if they had lost a loved one, or they were in a pack, they were in a family and the family gives them up for adoption for whatever reason. They don't often know what that reason is. Now, sometimes if the animals are more astute, they'll be able to emotionally figure out what's going on, and some of them will be more gracious toward their circumstances, where others will not be too happy about it. So when an animal gets adopted, there's that really happy moment where you see this on YouTube videos, you see it on Humane Society, or the different shelters will have these videos of Adoption Day, and there'll be a little tag on the cage, and the animal will be very excited, because it is very exciting to get out of the shelter. But what they don't tell us, or maybe they do in other videos, is that a lot of the times the animals are actually brought back to the shelter. So maybe they last a week, maybe they last 2 weeks, and then they're returned to the shelter. Sometimes they're returned to the shelter more than one time. And so what the animals do is one of two things. One, they go into hyper mode where they're just trying to be completely the perfect animal, right? They try to do everything right. They drive themselves crazy, trying to please the people, make sure that their old habits don't come up, or whatever it is. They want to stay in that home. They don't want to go back to the shelter. So they'll do that. The other one that they'll do is they'll act out. They'll be aggressive. They'll maybe go to the bathroom in the house. They might tear something up, because they're adjusting to a new situation, which is very stressful for them. And people might ask, well, why is that stressful for them? They're finally in a permanent home. Isn't that what they want? Well, they're in a new environment. And when you put an animal in a new environment, it's going to be stressful. Think about the times where you've moved into a new apartment, or you moved into a new house, or maybe you moved to a new country, or a new state, or a new province. Think about how stressful that is. And we don't even use our sense of smell like the way that they do. They're using all their sensory as they're moving into this new environment and making it their home. Now, another thing they could run into is there's already pets in the home. Maybe there's other foster animals in the home. Maybe they remember being a foster animal in a home, and they're confused about, am I a permanent resident here, or am I foster? Am I going to go to another house? They can be very confused, or they could move into a house where another animal is dominant. Could be a cat, could be a dog, could be a goat, or one of those little donkeys. But there's an animal that's already the boss. And so now they're coming into someone else's territory. And so they have to learn the rules of the pack. They need to learn, like, the pecking order. They need to learn, who is in charge. And that can be very confusing, because they may have been the one in charge in their last home, but now they've been demoted on the, whatever you call it, food chain. Or they may end up with people who don't have boundaries. They may end up with people who don't know how to say no, people that spoil them and confuse them. Because when you spoil an animal, you actually confuse them. Because spoiling is what we would do for people. It's not what you do for an animal. An animal needs to have structure. They need to know, like, when they're going to get fed. They need to know, if they're a dog, they need to know when they're going to go for a walk. When do they have to go outside to do their business? When are they going to go on a vacation? When are they going to do all these different things, right? And another mistake could be somebody adopts an animal and immediately takes them on vacation, or immediately takes them somewhere they're not ready to go, because maybe they had been socialized to an extent at the shelter or the foster home, but maybe they've never been to a beach, maybe they've never been to a mountain with snow, maybe they've never been to these places that all the humans want to take their animal to, because that's what we want to do. We want to bond really quickly, and with some of these animals we can't bond quickly. And the people who have fostered animals, the people who have rehabbed animals, people that work in these shelters, they know that each animal is going to have its own level of trust, and depending on what situations they had been in previously, they may not be trusting of others. They may cower, they may go in the corner, especially cats will hide. When cats go into a new home, sometimes if they're terrified or uncomfortable, they'll go hide under a bed, they'll go hide in a corner, they'll go hide in a closet, they'll go hide in a cardboard box, and dogs will probably try to get away as well. So sometimes I've seen videos where people are bringing a new dog into the home, or a cat, and they're trying to hug it and everybody's on top of it. I don't think that's a good idea. I know that the people are excited and they're showing their affection, but you have to kind of do that little by little. You have to do that in increments. You need to let the animal sniff around. You need to let them get into whatever position or role they're going to have in that household. They need to get used to when they're going to be fed. They need to get used to where they're sleeping and all those things. And if it's a young animal, like a puppy or a kitten, it could be very needy, needing, maybe not being hugged and all of that, but just needing someone near them when they're sleeping, because they're now in a big house, and before they were in a cage, they were in a kennel. So we have to see things, and this is what I always say, we have to see things from their perspective, even if that means walking on all fours across your house, to just kind of see where their eye level is. What are they seeing? What are they hearing? Now, we're not going to hear the same things that they hear, or we're not going to see the same ways that they see, but we'll see the angles that they see. And they're also more perceptive than we are. And so they could not like something in the house. There could be, some kind of spiritual disruption. There could be, as in ghosts, there could be electrical currents that bother them. You don't want to put the modem next to their bed. You don't want to put any kind of electronic devices next to their bed. You don't want to talk on your cell phone above their head. You just don't want to expose them to all these EMFs, which are for human use, not for their use. But it is low levels of radiation, and it's not good for them. So there's many things that there may be some smells in the house. You may be using bleach or ammonia, and maybe that sets them off because it reminds them of being in a vet clinic, or it reminds them of being in the shelter, where they have to use more harsh detergents and things to clean out the kennels and disinfect and all of that. So you may want to switch to an unscented, more natural product. Aromatherapy oils could bother them as well. They could have allergies. You may not know every health condition that the animal has, because maybe the animal's only been in a shelter for a short amount of time, and some health issues don't come up until later. So, they may have allergies, and you bring them into the house and they're sneezing and their eyes are running and their ears are getting infected and that sort of thing. Or if they're coughing, you want to take them to the vet immediately if they're coughing a lot. So these are some things to consider when adopting an animal. I think it's great that people go to shelters and adopt animals. I think it's great that people foster animals. I think it's great that people are rehabbing animals. And of course, the people that foster and rehab are pretty knowledgeable about what they're doing, but somebody could be a first-time cat owner or a first-time dog owner, and they're going to a shelter and they're bringing an animal home. It's probably good to research that breed or a mix of breeds, and also to make your house safe. And watch as many videos as you can of what to avoid as far as safety in animals, and maybe even take a first aid class for pets. So that is my video for today. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope that you will subscribe to this channel. I would like to see it grow. I've been wanting that for months now. I don't know why it's not growing. I thought there were a lot of animal lovers out there. I know I'm one of them. So anyways, if you would like a Reiki session or sound therapy or animal communication, which is what I'm doing mostly now, please sign up at the links that I'll leave below. So thank you for your time. Again, this is Buzz and Bark Animal Reiki. Have a wonderful week.